to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a special guest with us tonight to recognize one of our board members, Douglas Land. So Tim Creamer is the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards and asked for some time to honor Douglas. So would you like to say something about Douglas? Because we can.
Yeah, very good. Obviously, Douglas Ann did not know I was coming. I came over here from the Albany area, and I tried every door in the building and finally found it.
Some of us do that every night.
Yeah. But I want to be here to honor Douglas Ann in front of her peers because she is going off our board of directors. The New York State School Boards Association is an organization of 93% of the school boards throughout the state. And we do all kinds of work in the area of advocacy and information that we produce and training programs and consulting services. And we could not do that without the governance and leadership of a very talented board of directors. And I'm blessed to have a wonderful board. They are 18 people who, beyond the borders of Trumansburg, devote additional time to come to Latham or other places where we have meetings periodically and help us make some very important decisions that have an impact statewide. And she does this on her own time. We meet on nights and weekends, and it's a heavy lift for somebody to participate, particularly when you're 3.5 hours away. And so from 2006 to 2014, Douglas Ann has been a member of our board of directors representing what we call Area 4, which is a pretty broad reach. So she has not only coming to Latham now and then, she attends a lot of meetings within this area. I know you're involved with other organizations such as the Rural Schools Association, Central New York School Boards Association, and other things, I'm sure. And so it is an honor for me to be here this evening to share with you those thoughts and to also express our appreciation of Douglas Ann Land. So Douglas, if you want to come up here, I'd like to present this with you.
Can't believe I'm a photographer. Other duties at the time.
Douglas, would you like to say anything?
Well, nothing except that this is a complete and total surprise, and that I appreciate your understanding my absences when I've been absent from meetings, which I've had to be on occasion. And thanks to a very lively crew here, I always have something fascinating to bring to meetings in Albany. So I thank all of you for all the contributions you make, not only to this school, but to other schools in the area through Central New York and other organizations to whom you belong. So thank you very much, sir.
That's a good segue for me, because I also have a plaque that I'd like to present to the president of the board. And that is a plaque that is for the Truman School Board.
Okay.
And it is to recognize that when Douglas could not be successful without your support. And we want you to have this. I'll just bring it on over to you, Frank. And I hope you guys will find a place of honor.
We will. Thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure.
So tonight, get that up first. Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
That was nice to start out.
You got the law book right there? If I told you were someone else, I would have brought extras.
We got it.
I'm going to leave these boxes and bags here for you.
Thanks for making the trip. Really appreciate it.
Well, now I get to go over to Groton. I'm doing a twofer tonight. All right, thanks again. Oh, bye.
2 weeks early.
Boy, all right.
Hi, Douglas.
Thank you.
Okay, without any further ado, Kimberly Bell will speak to us about the veterans exemption.
Okay. Do we want to dim the light just one, just see that a little bit better? Sure. Thanks, Jane. So, good evening.
No.
Thank you.
Is that his coat? Did he leave his coat?
He left the scope.
He'll be back.
No,
that's.
It's your
Oh, you're coming, all right.
Must be pretty.
Let's try the other one,
I don't
Gene.
think-
Gene, let's try the other.
Can you shut the door?
That's
That's better.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That way Peter will be able to see.
Water, coffee. So before we begin this evening, could I just have a show of hand from those of you that are veterans in the room? Great. And on behalf of the district, I would like to extend our gratitude for your service and dedication to our country, and thank you for being here this evening. So this evening's presentation is about the military veterans school tax exemption and the impact it'll have on our school tax base. But before we start, I need to give a whole lot of credit to Peter Mahalke. Peter, you want to raise your hand over there? So Peter did all the research behind this as part of his internship project, and he also worked very closely with Michael McGuire. So most of this information was put together last spring, and Peter's made a few adjustments this fall. And last spring, we were just undecided when the perfect timing was to present this, so we're bringing it to you this evening. Okay, so the Veterans Tax Exemption was originally enacted in 1984 for municipalities, but recent changes have authorized school boards to provide veterans with a partial break from school district property taxes. The law provides percentage exemptions for those who served in wartime, combat, or became disabled during service. And the new law requires that boards hold a public hearing prior to adopting the exemption, and some districts will place a poll proposition on the May ballot to gauge public sentiment. The deadline or taxable status date is March 1st for the school tax relief for the following fall. There's a range of dollar exemptions that the Board of Education can adopt and then pass a supporting resolution. The next slide you'll see I'll go into more detail on that item, explaining what those ranges are. And finally, eligible veterans already enrolled with the county would automatically be granted the new exemption. The font on this is rather small, but I'll draw your eyes to the important pieces. So how does this, feel free to move around, even come back here if you can't see it. So how does this work, and what are the state law basic maximums? Each veteran may be eligible for 1 to 3 exemptions, as highlighted over here. So wartime, combat, and disability. Wartime, combat, and/or disability. The percentages for each exemption are cumulative. A veteran that was on active duty during a period of war is entitled to an exemption of 15% of his or her assessed home value. However, it's not to exceed $12,000. You can see this column here is the state law basic maximums. That applies to this region. All numbers from here over are for, it's called the high appreciation municipalities, and an example of that would be New York City. So Peter has actually highlighted the 2 yellow spots that we would pay attention to. Let me see. An individual may also be eligible for additional 10% exemption if he or she served in combat zone, and/or an additional exemption equal to 1/2 of the disability rating multiplied by the assessed value of the property. So in some cases, we could have veterans that can be eligible for all 3 of these within this yellow column. Again, the font on this is very small, but I'll bring your attention to the important pieces. So this report was provided by Seneca County, and it's actually the tax parcels that are identified that are applicable to the Veterans Tax Exemption Code. So here you can see the codes, and each of these codes represent either that wartime, the combat, or disability. And in some cases, a parcel will have 3 codes attached to it, so it'll be listed 3 times. And in that case, that veteran is eligible for all 3 of those exemptions. And like I said before, it's cumulative. To the far right, which again, it's very hard to see these numbers, these are the allowances that they've been afforded for those exemptions for each of those 3 areas: wartime, combat, and disability. So what does that mean for Trumansburg? District-wide, we have 243 parcels that are presently eligible. And using the state law maximums, which I'll just go back a few slides for a second to show you that. So you can see the Board of Education has a choice. So this is the maximum, which is what most municipalities have chosen to follow. However, if the Board of Education chose that they wanted to move forward with a minimum exemption, they could choose this column. So if they chose the minimum column, it would be for all three examples, wartime, combat, and disability. They could also choose the medium range, or they could choose the maximum range. So if you go back to that other slide. So in this case, using the state law basic maximums, the 12,000, the 8,000, and up to 40,000 for the disability, that represents 4.8 million in taxable property value that would no longer be applicable for Seneca, Schuyler, and Tompkins County. What that means really in terms of tax dollars, it's a change in about 94,000 that would be shifted from from veterans to non-veterans. So more specifically, because individuals fall into one of three counties for Trumansburg Central School District. And so if we look at Tompkins County, those residents would see an impact of 1.2% or an additional $23 per $100,000 of assessed value. That would be the impact for non-veterans. Similarly, Seneca County residents would see an increase of 1.89% or an increase of $39 per $100,000 of assessed value. Moving on to Schuyler County. Schuyler County non-veterans would see an estimated increase of approximately $29 per $100,000 of assessed value. Overall, for all three counties, we would see a shift from an estimated $23 to $39 on $100,000 of assessed value using the state law basic maximums. And so this column over here where it says summary, this top one is using that maximum column that I had showed you on the previous chart. And these other examples, 17 to 29 is the middle range, and 1150 to 1950, depending on your county, for the bottom range. And that's a choice that the Board of Education would make in terms of which allocation they would make for the veterans. So this is based on an actual parcel in Seneca County. And this individual's taxable value is $115,500. The veterans tax exemption represents, and I'm not exactly sure why, but 16.45%. So you heard me say before, an individual in wartime was 15%. So this one's just slightly over that. The tax rate in Seneca County is $20.89 per $1,000 of assessed value, lending to an exemption of $396. In addition to that, individuals that are eligible for this veterans tax exemption, they still also get their STAR exemption. So in this case, the combined savings for both STAR and the veterans tax exemption, it's a combined total savings of $992. Legislation has passed. It now allows school districts to adopt, rescind, increase, or decrease the value of a veterans tax exemption.
So we have the enabling legislation from the state that allows us to begin this discussion.
That's correct.
What I heard you say is by sometime in March, we have to come to a decision.
So by March 1st.
And part and parcel of that is a public hearing, which is separate and distinct from this meeting.
That's correct.
You have to come to a decision by March 1st to impact next year's taxes. If the board waits till after March 1st, they can still do it, but it would wait a year to impact taxes.
So for example, if we attached a proposition to the May budget vote to do a poll of the entire community, that would delay the exemption to the fall of 2016.
If the board so chooses.
Okay. All right. Just so everybody's good on the process. Let's get questions. Now, I just wanted to get some clarification on, we have enabling legislation, there's a process for moving forward, and then the rest of it is details. Questions?
But conversely, the board, it says here we could pass or rescind or adopt at any time. We could, as a board, adopt it for this upcoming year, and then in May, put it on referendum for the following year to let the public decide,
Yes.
if we chose to do that.
Yes.
So a public hearing is not required.
A The public
Yes.
hearing is
Yes.
required.
Yes.
Right, and this isn't it.
This is a public meeting, but the piece that the district did not do is we did not advertise it with the required amount of legal time with the media.
So we could do
We need to
it
do
the
that,
next
yeah.
time at the next board meeting,
Yeah.
if we felt we wanted.
Yeah.
So, clarifying questions. Anybody? Questions for Kimberly?
Well, I have some questions. Do veterans get exemptions in any of our counties that our district is in now?
Yes,
Which ones?
all of them.
All three.
Mhm.
And what are those exemptions?
10 and 15.
10 and 15?
10 for military service,
Thousand.
15 for combat.
Percent.
So this is in addition, correct me if I'm wrong, John, this is in addition to what the county has granted
Yes.
our veterans.
And this is county tax.
This is our school taxes. So the school district's in a precarious position because although the legislation has given the district, for the most part, the say in granting this veterans tax exemption, it really does not change the impact on the district. So for example, if I say next year we need to go out with $11 million levy, we will collect that levy. The only thing that this does is it changes, so if we remove $93,000 from the tax base from our veterans, it's spread out to our non-veterans, and so they pick up that piece.
Which is roughly a 1% increase for everyone else, maybe a little more.
Right, correct.
So veterans get exemptions already
Yes.
on their school tax?
No, on their county.
On their county tax, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
10 or 15%, depending on their situation.
With, I'm assuming, a cap like we have of some sort.
Well, actually, if I go back to that slide,
It's only on primary residence.
it is the primary residence,
Okay.
that's true. And Peter, feel free to jump in too. The state law basic maximum is what municipalities have chosen to honor, correct? And so that's just a guideline. So we could choose from either of these three columns, this being the maximum. And my understanding is that most municipalities have chosen to honor the basic, the state law basic maximum.
Okay.
So.
So this would be an additional exemption on top of what the county's currently doing
That's
for the
correct.
school tax component.
Correct.
Tax.
Let me be clear on this. The state maximum basic, the $12,000, that's a maximum amount of assessed value you can lose from the,
Yeah,
From the tax.
right.
so in my case, if a $200,000 home, at 10%, that would be 20. So this is actually less than what the county would be offering.
That's correct.
So it's not as significant, I guess.
Right. So essentially, there's a cap on it.
Well, essentially, we're moving $93,000 from a group of taxpayers that we've identified or we've been allowed to identify.
Right.
Shifting it to the other.
Yep.
So, let me just continue this line. So this is basically on the residents only,
Yes. Primary residence.
other business properties or whatever.
Correct. It's not on
It's
business
the
property. It's your
star.
primary residence.
Star situation,
Mhm.
yeah. Do any of the school districts, even BOCES,
I believe we are
Offer
the
this.
first to even have this presentation or public meeting.
In our entire BOCES.
I believe.
I'm sorry, Glynis, do you have something to add?
Lansing has it.
Lansing is, are
Lansing.
they already honoring it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Lansing is
They have
already-
voted
That's-
yeah.
Well, let's get some, yeah, we can't trust a reporter today. They don't trust us.
Lansing is not. I just spoke with Mary June King a couple of weeks ago. Lansing is not.
Did they bring it up?
They put it on
They
on
discussed
an
it.
exit poll,
Yeah.
attached to their budget vote.
Right.
Okay.
And then they didn't move forward with it so far. That was my understanding.
Kimberly, quick question. On the disability,
yes.
is that a flat 40,000, or does that depend upon the nature of your disability and how the
It is
Service
actually
says-
1/2 of the disability rating that an individual has received.
So
So if you're 100% disabled, you would get 50% of your assessed value.
Right, so that's an
Not
actual
to exceed
movable number.
40,000. Yes, that's a
Right.
moving number.
Other clarifying questions?
Well, if we say our tax increase this year was 2%, what would impact, how much would that raise taxes for us?
So
The owner of-
2% on our levy is
200,000.
roughly 200,000, just over 200,000. And our tax rate is right around 19.2 per $1,000 assessed, per $100,000 assessed value. So,
And that varies based on the county there.
absolutely, right.
So based on the counties, between $23 and $39
Yep.
per $100,000
Yeah.
would be shifted to,
Yeah, in fact, if we go back to that slide, which order was it, that's probably the best example of how it impacts each county. So if you are a Tompkins County resident, you're going to see an increase of $23 on a $100,000 assessment. So if you're a $300,000 home, multiply times 3. And that's the impact that you would see.
So, my last question is, how many, we have 243 potential veterans exemptions, how many people, and you may not have this answer, you don't,
How many people does it actually account for?
how many people will it raise taxes for?
All the rest.
All the rest,
Well, how many is that?
I don't know.
How many
How many
houses?
parcels?
How many residents?
How many parcels
I've
do
been
we
asking
have in
this
our
question for
school
years.
district?
What- how
That's a
many-
great
yeah.
question.
It's a good question, Peter, I don't know.
We can look into that.
Yeah, I can find that answer. I
Well,
just-
it's, the parcels are all coded.
Right, and I would just need to reach out to each of the assessment
That's all.
offices and find out
Find out the.
total.
Find that out?
I will do
How
that.
many- how this impacts non-veterans?
Yeah.
Is this a voluntary thing? Do people have to apply? Can they choose not to?
It's voluntary, it says right here that you can give it back anytime you choose.
No, and in terms for the individual person.
I'm sorry?
I think in terms of
So-
the individual veteran, can they choose not to
Yes.
avail themselves of this?
Yes, they can. It's an application process once it's approved by the board.
And it's through the county, so you can see that last bulleted point, it says eligible vets already enrolled through county would be automatically granted any new
Right.
exemptions.
Because their property's coded currently.
Right,
You
and
have
so
to do
that's,
something to get that
that's not
code.
through us, the individual would work with the county to get that exemption.
Question?
Just to add something too, sir.
Please.
Also, those 3 codes are not always the same. Like, one person may be disabled through regular active duty service and never had a combat exemption or a conflict exemption. You may have somebody who was in a conflict exemption in a combat zone who never was disabled. So there's a sliding scale as well, that not everybody's gonna get all 3 codes.
Correct.
Unless they're already enrolled in those 3 codes, like Mr. White said, it's an application process that you have to file before you get each of those codes.
But the impact to us, the impact to the residents, non-vet residents that you've calculated is our maximum
Right.
scenario.
Right,
If every veteran took all 3 and we total them all up, so it's very unlikely
Well-
we're gonna get that maximum.
actually,
we already know
this
what
number
the
that,
number is.
We do.
right, it's right here.
That's the number.
So we have
Oh, okay.
243
Okay.
parcels presently eligible within Trumansburg Central School District.
Okay.
And the dollar amount that that represents in the tax shift is, is 93,000.
93,000.
So that's the part that non-veterans will make up, is just that 93,000. And your point is well made, in that individuals can have 1, 2, or 3 of those.
A variety of ways to
But
get
it's
that benefit.
unlikely.
Right. Pardon?
It's unlikely. Like in my case, I would qualify for 2.
Right, and
So
essentially, this has already taken all
already
that
taken
into
that into account.
consideration.
Yeah.
Because we
Right.
already
So we
know
already
it's
know that.
94,000, that's the
And
number.
you gentlemen might be able, forgive my ignorance on this, but technically speaking, when was the last time the United States declared war?
It doesn't have to be declared, it can be police action.
So it can be a police
Look
action.
Look at Iraq, they haven't declared war since World War II.
Right,
but
but when they
nonetheless-
talk about wartime, so that's not
So,
necessarily eligible.
so wartime is veterans who are on active duty during a period of war. That's the
Okay.
definition of wartime.
I can, if I may,
Please.
answer that question. When you apply for those specific exemptions through the county, and when you also file a claim with the Veterans Administration, they have specific periods that they
Yes.
will count
They
as
have
a
chosen.
conflict area. Panama, even though it wasn't a war, is considered one of those conflict areas because we sent soldiers there was conflict. Grenada is considered one, Somalia is considered one, 93. They have those broken down into specific areas. And each veteran would know what they were a part of and whether or not is it considered part of those because of the what's outlaid by the VA.
Do they consider Korea that way as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Part of your out processing when you leave is to sit down with the county's Veterans Affairs officer. They take your service record and they go through your service record. They look at different awards that you received for combat, non-combat situations. And they know where you served, whether it was during wartime, and they're the ones who make the determination. They
Okay.
take your medical record goes to the local veterans hospital, they scan your medical record, they determine whether or not you're disabled in any way, shape, or form. All that's done through that process. Yeah, so that's
So
how it's
93,000 is the number, and I guess we need to decide more clarifying questions for Kimberly and Peter.
This applies only to veterans, this doesn't apply to first responders at all? And it's regardless of person's income?
Correct.
But if I go back to
Property
Jane,
taxes
the
regardless
question
of
that you asked about, it says taxpayers who wish to give up their claim can file an exemption.
Okay.
So we have our, so we've got our information that we were asking for as a board, right? We wanted this information. I guess how does the board want to proceed, right? There's a number of ways to proceed. We could just say, okay, next meeting, we're going to have a public meeting, we're going to put a vote through. We can say, let's hold on, let's put a referendum, take a vote for the members, let's do a after ballot or survey to see how our community feels about this. What is the board's desire for moving forward?
I would like to hear from anybody in.
Yeah, what do you guys, comments, yeah.
Yes,
Comments from
please.
them? Yeah. Do they want to make any, do you want to make any comments?
God bless.
Anyone not?
Well, I'd like to.
Go ahead, John.
I'd like to move forward in the earliest possible convenience and make a motion that we vote on it as a board.
Where's everybody else on this? Douglas? Gary?
We have to have a public hearing before.
We have to have a public hearing, right, so we're gonna do this again. I just wanna say, do we wanna move with this expeditiously? Do we want to be more deliberate? I mean, there's two ways to go. One is, we like it, it's okay. We have a hearing next time, we vote, we're done. The other is more deliberate. We wanna talk about it, we wanna have a community conversation about it. Where are you at with this?
I'd really like to see a poll of some sort, as Lansing did.
So it's part of the,
Correct.
like a
as part of
proposition
A proposition on
on the
the
May budget.
Yeah.
One for each.
So Kimberly, the categories again are,
They are wartime, combat, and disability. 3 yellow on the left.
You can be in during wartime and not serve in a combat zone. Then you can serve in a combat zone. If you've been pushing paper.
so what if you're none of those? You could be a veteran and be none of those, couldn't
Yes.
you?
You can't.
So,
So
They're not eligible.
They don't get
then
it.
that would
They're not eligible.
exclude them.
Yeah, this is for people who put themselves in harm's way.
okay.
That's what it is. It's not, I guess if you,
Well,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was in from 1990 to 1993 on active duty, and I was in Germany. I never went to the Gulf War. But I served during a conflict time, that makes me eligible,
Exactly.
Right.
regardless of actually being in theater.
Right.
Then being in theater in Iraq, that again gives me the second one.
Right.
So you could still be on active duty, not necessarily in harm's way, you're just serving your country during that time where you could have been called to service in a war zone, and you still qualify for the combat, or the conflict exemption.
But short of the first incursion in Iraq, it was basically Panama and Grenada between Vietnam and,
Bosnia?
Bosnia would have been
You've
in the
got,
Clinton
you've
years.
got Korea, like she said, you have, well, they still draw on World War I, World War II,
Yeah, so-
Korea, Vietnam, Somalia, Grenada, Panama, Iraq One, which is the Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Right.
All those are qualifying.
But I mean, some of these points are moot. I mean, fundamentally, we have 2 points. We have one, honoring the veterans. Two is $93,000 that everybody has to pay. That's
Okay.
to me.
I think that a poll would be a good thing. I think that as a board, of course, we are elected officials, and if you take a poll, there's probably, the large majority of people would have to pay 1% extra. If we decide we have 3 veterans on our board and they will financially advance, have an advantage, and that's something that is a little bit of a concern. I don't know what, a little uneasy about having 3
Okay,
people on
Peter.
the board that are veterans that will financially benefit.
Quick question, Peter, just in terms of, transparency, the 3 veterans on the board that you're referring to would be,
You're one, right?
no, it is
No,
my
it's the
son.
son.
Well, your son's one.
Yes,
Okay.
he qualifies for all
And
3.
John and Glenn. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Still a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean,
This is the issue the board needs to grapple with.
yeah.
Anytime we vote for anything to raise or lower taxes,
We
you're
benefit.
directly benefit from those votes. So as taxpayers, should we not vote for anything that is gonna impact whether you pay taxes or higher or lower?
It
Because
doesn't,
we should all exempt ourselves from every vote at that point.
to that,
That's ludicrous, Glenn.
No,
no,
It
it's
is,
not.
yeah.
it's true.
Yeah,
Okay, Peter?
I think that's the purpose of the poll.
yeah.
And I have no problem with it. I think that we should get the
Yeah.
pulse of the community
Yeah.
on this. We should definitely advertise
Yeah.
it, and we should, I ask people all the time.
Yeah.
So we should feel out the community. We represent them.
So just to clarify, we vote on taxes all the time.
Right.
And of course, they impact us differently, but we're imposing it uniformly.
Right.
The difference here is that there's a non-uniform aspect to it, that we're singling out a population, that the rest of the population has to bear the responsibility of. That's what it is. Yeah. So, question in the back, yeah.
Not really a question, a statement. I'm Gordon Hart. I sit on the Village of Trimsburg Board of Trustees, and I'm the police commissioner here. I am not a veteran, but I would like to state strongly and unequivocally my support for this exemption. The village offers it, the county offers it, and the town offers it. As an aside, the village kind of got a slap on the wrist from the state comptroller's office for running polls because the state considers it a backdoor referendum. And we're not allowed to run referendums on most things because we are elected to make those decisions. I don't know if New York State education law allows for polling of any kind for any reason. I just wanted to mention that. In addition to sitting on the village board, I do live obviously in the village. I am a 1994 graduate of Charles O. Dickerson High School. So I've been in this community for a long time. I don't feel that there is any group, if there's ever a group of any kind that deserves any kind of special treatment. That's one argument. Does anyone ever deserve special treatment when it comes to taxes? If we stipulate for the sake of argument that there can be at times groups that may deserve special treatment, I don't believe that there's any group that deserves it more than individuals who are willing to put their lives on the line for the freedoms that frankly we're enjoying tonight by being able to discuss this.
Gordon, are you speaking for yourself or for the village?
I am speaking for myself as a citizen and as an elected official.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for, I guess the issue that I would like some resolution as sort of responsible for the agenda, I think we would, is do we want to move for a public hearing in the near future?
I think you could still have a public hearing, and then after the public, we present everything once again as you have, we take comments from the people who are here, then the board can decide yes, no, or put it out to a poll if that's legitimate and legal.
Then maybe we should advertise it and go to the firehouse or to another building that we could house more people and try to get people engaged after that meeting, whether or not we've got a feel from the public.
If the people don't want it or don't agree with this approach, they can come and voice their opinion.
So it would be a meeting separate from the board meeting then, I would think.
Carl Keeper said it could be.
Like we do a-
Could it be attached to it, so you could do a public hearing at 5:30 PM or 6 and then the board meeting could immediately follow.
Like we do for the budget hearing every year.
Yes.
So where is the board at on this? Do we want to move, I don't hear any vehement objection to a public hearing, but I do hear two, maybe more asking about, maybe what does the community think about this? So,
This is our opportunity.
And I want to know what they think about it. So, but I think that.
so then maybe our next board meeting, I guess we'll have to get a sense, of what kinds of attendance we might have, we can simply just have it in the auditorium. We've done that before. And we can just be in the same building and be in the auditorium rather than going to the firehouse or something. So why don't we put that on the agenda, that we'll have a public hearing prior to the next board meeting? And we see where this leads us.
January 12th.
Okay? How are we doing with that?
Sounds
Yeah?
good. Another question, how does this affect does it affect our tax cap at all?
And that's why I said it puts the district in a precarious position, because it's really no impact on the district. I mean, you're allowed to make this decision for the community at large, but it makes no difference on our funding stream whatsoever.
They're gonna get their, the
Well,
school's gonna
it's
get
gonna
Their
push us
taxes
to
just
be-
raise.
It's not going to push us anywhere. It's still the same tax base. It's just who's paying it.
Oh.
There's no impact to the district whatsoever.
Good. Further? Yep, thanks very much. So we'll plan that public hearing prior to the next board meeting on January 12th. Excellent. So we are moving the executive session to the end of the meeting for some issues that we'll need to discuss. We don't have any correspondence. Board forum looks like a very busy policy committee meeting. This has a lot to do with anti-harassment and non-discrimination, which I'm sure is related somewhat to our DASA responsibilities.
Yes.
Right? So Jane, will you lead us on this? Let me get the first reading underway here. I need a motion and a second. Okay, so let's hear from the policy board. Jane?
Okay, what we have is presented for you as a first reading for the equal employment opportunity. This is basically indicates how any grievances can be presented and our response to it. It's fairly straightforward, and as Doug will remind me, I don't think there was a tremendous amount of change to this
Very little.
from the policy. It was more in terms of, once again, housekeeping, making things a little more understandable, or
And consistent with DASA maybe.
Well, not only
No, I think
consistent
it
with
was-
DASA, it's more just simplifying the language. Some of the language in the old policies was really,
and occasionally corrected.
yeah. That too.
Nothing like an English
Sorry.
major running the policy committee. Onward.
Okay,
Non-discrimination,
it's
anti-harassment.
been in the school district, right, again, first reading for this, and it's fairly, again, they made an effort to be able to make it very clear, also to confirm with DASA. And one of the things that they had suggested, I think it was this one, is when we name a civil rights compliance officer, they suggest that perhaps there should be two,
Right.
one of each gender. And both Doug and I thought that this would be a good idea. I would just like to see what the rest of the board would think, because we had recommended to Michael that that would be something that I think would be very useful. And at this point, our current compliance officer that we have is the athletic director.
Okay.
And you had mentioned that the reason why that's a natural selection is because frequently a lot of these complaints deal with athletics, girls. being-
Title IX stuff.
Right.
Correct.
And we just
But it
want
also
that.
includes any kind of harassment, which would be of a sexual nature. So,
So questions on any of the policies that the policy committee has brought for the first reading? Clarifications, questions?
These
Are
groups,
you-
go ahead, Peter.
Are you suggesting we need another compliance officer?
yes,
Of a female nature.
in other words, one of each.
Who would be,
Up to Michael to determine who we thought would be most
And we
suitable.
would appoint that person at the reorg meeting in July,
Or possibly earlier.
or possibly earlier to comply with this policy. Gary?
So these are revisions made by Erie One BOCES?
Yes.
Yes, they're the ones that they basically suggest that the changes to what our current policy is.
As part of our $30,000 subscription to that service, yes.
Yes, 30, but
Or
something.
It's significant.
13.
pounds worth
what?
of paper.
8?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
It is. Okay.
So the differences between our existing policy and this is put the two side by side and start reading?
Yes.
Is what we're
Yes,
saying?
you could
Okay.
do that. I don't think you will. This is what we actually did in the policy committee, and came up with the idea that there really is not.
I didn't see a markup.
Usually we get a marked up version if
That's
there's,
fine.
yeah, I don't see a
So-
marked up version.
We did-
Usually we get
okay.
something with red lines in and anything. and-
Okay.
So these are not new policies.
Oh, no, well, No.
They're existing policies that are being
Right.
clarified or updated,
Right.
all right?
In fact, there's a lot to that, which means that the actual policy is dynamic rather than static, so that you can keep current with either state law or various and other things that are going on.
Further discussion?
Is there a reason that we need to have a second reading on this to vote?
Not if there's not any particular clarification, we can amend the motion. Recommendation to amend the motion to be an acceptance of the policy. Need a motion?
So
And a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion about finishing this up tonight? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we're there.
Good, thank you.
Well done, Jane. Thank you, Douglas. Anything from the athletics committee?
I defer to our athletic director, Mr. Hodge.
Excellent. Mr. Hodge.
All right, so we've been very busy looking at different options for our student athletes to be able to participate in football for next year. One of the hardest things I had to do was in the first month of being an athletic director was to tell 16 kids that they can no longer play the game they love and enjoy every day. So I don't want to have that happen again. So we've been actively reaching out to other districts. We've reached out to Newfield. We've reached out to South Seneca. I just met with Heather Mott at South Seneca today because of bad weather and various illnesses. It was a very positive meeting. Both of us are on board with trying to push our boards to accept this and move forward with combining and merging with South Seneca.
And we have a motion on the agenda as such,
Okay.
right? We have a motion on this agenda.
Yes, we do.
We did, and I think that was put on there because in our section, section 4, which is the greater Binghamton area, we needed to have a decision by January 1st.
So we gotta do it today.
No, section
But section 5 is Rochester area, and that goes under different rules. So they don't have a merger deadline until, I was told, the week before the season starts. I do not want to wait.
Let's not explore this any further, Jason. Please give us recommendation.
My recommendation would be that we not move for the January 1st deadline. I would move for something in January, though. That we move to put something in motion to continue the talks with South Seneca about allowing our teams to combine.
We have a motion here that's approving the merger. I think we're ready to have a discussion about it.
Can we, why would we wait, Jason?
It,
I mean, I'm just curious, is there
it's
more things?
our
to be worked
decision
out?
here.
We
So
got a
we
motion.
can approve it
Yeah.
here, but that doesn't mean that over there. I feel confident that they will, but again, we just met today, so I don't want them to be in a rush to say, look, we're not gonna do this.
I guess my concern would be is, are you sure that the week before the game starts or practice starts, we can make a
That's why I would like to figure out something by January. The end of January would be the latest I would keep it.
Okay, I'm confused. Does that mean that we will sort of move out of the district we're currently in?
We would move out of the section we're in for football and move to play the section 5. And in section 5 they do leagues. Our football is basically a section, so there's no league. It's an entire section. So we could travel all the way to Delhi, which is 2.5 hours away. Section 5, the furthest South Seneca would travel would be about 45 minutes.
There you have it.
So logistically, it makes a lot more sense for us to go that way and join them and merge.
For them to come?
For them to come here and then have their fans have to travel another 2.5 hours beyond us.
Right. But part of this merger includes utilizing this beautiful facility that we
Absolutely.
just built, right?
And tomorrow night, I believe, they have a vote as to whether to move forward with their field preparations for next fall. So it is quite possible that they will not have a field if it goes to vote and it gets passed. But they would not have a field to utilize for the fall, so that would mean the games would be here.
So we're gonna have more discussion about this football thing during the motion time that we have here, right? Do you have anything else other than the football discussion?
That has been #1 priority right now because our deadline was January 1st and we wanted to make sure that we didn't let it slide by.
Excellent. But there's lots of other discussions underway in the athletics committee that Gary appraised us of.
Previously, well.
Yeah, at the previous
Nothing
meeting.
since that last
No.
meeting, because it's all been about football.
Okay, all right, so let's get football disposed of tonight, and you'll stay in case we have questions, Jason.
Sure.
Great. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Talking merging or combining two teams?
Merging. To get there.
I don't know what the proper language is, but we are looking to equally contribute student athletes towards one team.
This
So
is
I
it.
don't know how the state sees it as merging or combining teams. In my mind, that would be the same thing.
I think it's often more as the community perceives it, or the communities perceive it. There have been issues where, you know, you've wound up with half cat, half rabbit, or something for mascots, that sort
Well,
of
a few
thing.
years ago,
So,
Newfield came and played on the Trumansburg team. That wasn't
Yeah.
that was
That was not,
not a merger.
But it was referred to as.
It was
a
referred
merger.
to as
It
a
was
merger,
referred
but
to
it's where they were
technically
our guests, basically, and they came and played on our team. What we want to have happen is that it's combined.
South
and
Seneca,
that
Trumansburg.
They're not our guests, and we're not their
It's
guests.
two-
We're on the same team.
Providing they go by the Raiders.
Okay.
no,
So further questions, you want to wait till the motion? Because we can discuss this football thing at the motion when we make it as well. Okay? Anything from the food service committee? Something from the food service committee?
we met, and had a lengthy discussion with our food service director,
Excellent.
who is quite knowledgeable on all things having to do with the cafeterias. She's moving, I would say, very judiciously, very carefully through the cafeterias, making minor changes, minor tweaks here and there. I think in terms of, you know, consumption of school lunches and prices and all, we've got in the elementary and the middle school, the numbers are pretty much the same. But it looks as if in the high school, we are beginning to see some increases due to some of the changes she's made in lunch preparations and the breakfast program.
So more uptake.
And the menu?
Well, she's altered the menu. She's moved breakfast in the high school up until 10:30, so that, you know, kids who don't necessarily want to eat the first thing after they get up have an option there. And yeah, some of them don't want to eat until noon, eh, Jay? And then coffee is available as well. Another thing she's looking at may be of interest to Jason, and that is that oftentimes with the new caloric input regulations, our athletes, by the time they hit the athletic fields, are ready for another meal and not at their best. So she's considering putting in some after-school options that would be in, you know, I mean, state guideline, federal guidelines sort of end half an hour after school is finished, so that we have an option of providing a little something more then as
Yeah, for
well.
whole milk.
There's a novel idea.
Okay, so just general updates on what's going on.
Yes, the other thing that she had reported about that I thought was going really a step in the right direction, she was looking at all three as sort of being a unit and being able to maximize and make more efficient on ordering and on storing and on being able to sort of look at it, a unified campus as opposed to three individual ones. And that actually has a fair amount of cost savings as well as time savings.
And possibilities for quality improvement, because they'll be sharing recipes.
Would either of you add anything to these comments?
So, Eve is working very closely with the consultant report, and I'm meeting with her more frequently now, because we are already into December, and so we really need to identify timelines to implement these changes. School year goes rather quickly when you're an adult, and so yes, some of those changes that we're really pushing hard for at this time is looking at our campus as one campus rather than see three separate entities. It's just not cost effective to do business that way. At this point, we have not started ordering as one campus. We are still doing individual orders. So that's a real push that I would like to see happen starting as early as the beginning of January. Our breakfast sales in the middle school are very, very low, and it is conceivable to have the high school prepare those breakfast items and transport them to the middle school. And what we're looking at is perhaps if, depending on the employees that are within that building, if we can make a shift in hours and then offer something in the afternoon to our athletes. Still the same number of hours for our employees, however, maybe increase revenue. We will be visiting some other school districts. We just had that snow day last week, so our day was canceled, or another district had a snow day, so we were unable to visit then. But there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel. There are districts that are running in the black, and we very much need to get there.
Yeah.
We are still running at a financial deficit monthly, just over 8,000, or just under 9,000 actually, which
Per
is
month?
per month, which is better than last year. However, it's not anywhere where I need us to
times
be.
10?
Times 10. That is correct. And part of that
So
is.
other districts are in the black on this.
There are other districts that are in the black, and so I want to mirror what some of those other districts are doing. Free and reduced lunch percentage totals have an impact on that, of course. But I think there are some things that we can do and follow the recommendations of our consultant's report, and we can turn this around slightly. We are down a staff member from last year, so that is why we are a little bit less in a deficit than we were last year, because that eliminates a benefits package and a salary. So, and at this point, people are working hard, but we are getting by. And I just asked Eve to calculate our meals per labor hour to see what that looks like and see what other adjustments we can make. So we're still moving. I feel strongly that we have to identify 2 or 3 really big items, and we absolutely have to do them this year. This program's been running in the red far too long, and it isn't getting better fast enough. So, and just to really drive home that point is that any amount of money that we have to move in terms of an interfund transfer into our school cafeteria program comes directly out of the general fund. They are 2 separate budgets, and so that takes it away from our kids and our programming when we're supplementing the foods program. And so the closer we can get that foods program to running independently, the better off our general fund will be, the better off our programs will be, and the money is closer to our students.
This is the next windmill. This is the next thing to fix.
Yeah, I'm a little passionate about it.
Yeah, okay. Let's clarifying questions on the foods program.
So based on your comment just now, am I to understand that we've not implemented any of the recommendations? Any significant recommendations from the?
No significant recommendations at this point.
Other than some staffing changes.
Other than just not hiring, some replacing some.
But there has been movement, and things are going.
There have been some menu changes, however, as Douglas pointed out, there are some guidelines that we have to work within, so choices for food items are slightly restricted, and our percentage increase in sales when we compare last fiscal to this fiscal for both the elementary and the middle school are slightly down in terms of percentages, and true for the high school, they are up just slightly, but I would say statistically, not a significant percentage increase, just 8%, 2%, 3%, so not statistically staggering increases.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Douglas, do you have something to add other than BOCES and Central New York? Other stuff you
yeah.
have?
I do. Let's see if I can find it. Here you are. Let me see. Earlier this month, last month, I attended a meeting of the, Rick Tim's presentation in Ithaca. And this is just the basic data from that. If you want more information, I can get it to you, or a little more fluff. Basically, gavel elimination cuts for the 2014-15 budget as a total percentage of total budget range from about 1.4 to 4.7 in this area. It had a greater negative impact on lower wealth districts, which is not a surprise, compared to high wealth districts. Schools in the state, across the state, have lost basically at this point in time a total of $9.53 billion. due to the freeze in foundation aid combined with GEA from 2010 to 2014-15. In Tompkins County alone, we've lost more than triple the state average loss, which is huge. Over the past 5 years, state spending grew approximately 12,722 billion, and of that, approximately 11 million, or 1% of this increase in revenues, was distributed to school districts, so that's way out of whack. In other recent news, a survey conducted by NISBA shows that since the 2008 revisions in the 3028 process, average total cost of proceeding dropped from $216,376 to $134,376, which is a reduction of about 38% and fairly significant. That's made a bit of a difference. Also, the average length of the process dropped from an average of 502 days to 195 days, and of course that explains a lot of the change in cost.
So it used to take over 500 days. The average was 500 days.
That was the average.
So that's almost 2 full
Short
years.
years ago.
It's, yeah.
Okay.
So, let's see. Next up is rural schools. John Sipple presented a, believe it or not, a CARDI, that's the, his organization is associated with rural schools, Fiscal Stress Institute in Saratoga Springs, where a number of points were made. One of them was that among them were that the school and other municipal taxes have actually declined when adjusted for inflation, and that school spending so far has been flat. So that is interesting to me. And particularly given the drastic aid cuts that occurred during the time. He met with Rick Timms a couple of weeks ago and is developing strategies for the upcoming legislative session. Rural schools goes up to Albany as well as a group. And he's looking at increasing membership from downstate. So Eastern Suffolk BOCES is quite interested in joining, as is the Suffolk County SBA. So that would increase membership and make our dues a little more.
I saw John gave a presentation about the sort of brain drain in central New York.
Oh, yeah.
And what he said is, what's interesting is people don't leave here any more than they leave anywhere else in the country. He said people leave here at just exactly the same rate. The problem is people don't come in here at the same rate as they come in to other places.
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought about his presentation that directly impacts some of our STEAM discussions is, how do schools in this central New York area work with people who have jobs in the central New York area to enhance the environment for people to move back here, that there are jobs that they can be provided. And Simple had some pretty interesting data around these lines and some pretty clear ideas about how we could work with businesses around this stuff, I thought. Did you see this presentation?
Yeah, I have seen it, and I think I've mentioned a couple of times to you what Central New York is doing in that regard. We have 2 huge educational business groups going in that area. Not so much here yet. Part of the problem is that the community college lies right on the border of Tompkins and Onondaga counties. So that makes, Cortland? Excuse me, Cortland counties. And then the BOCES moves, that BOCES pretty much drives things. And Cortland County is in Onondaga, Cortland, BOCES. So we're kind of out in left field on that. We're developing better relationships with them.
Right, but we don't necessarily need them.
Well,
We don't
no,
need
but
TC3.
pardon me?
I mean, there's other places that'll work with us.
Oh, plenty of other
TC3.
places. We've investigated Ward
They're not the only ones
Warner,
in town.
High-Speed Checkware, there are lots of other places.
All right, what else you got?
Notes from the DS meeting, from Jeff Madison. Let me see.
The BOCES meeting.
The BOCES.
TST,
Yes,
BOCES.
TST. Our district superintendent.
District superintendent.
Yes.
These are notes from this meeting.
Lots
with
of
the
just-
state,
Mhm.
right? These are notes from this meeting. with
Yes,
the state.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of like, ooh, what might be on the horizon.
Yeah,
All right, let's
well, on
hear
the horizon are discussions about APPR and revisions therein. And some of them are huge, possibly huge ticket items, and, you know, could result in some big changes. They're looking at possibly adjusting the tenure system, altering the tenure system.
We just adopted these APP things.
Yeah.
Well,
changing
yeah.
the
We're
rate.
in our third year right now.
Boy, that's a long time.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is, of course, we only really have one more year of federal funding that.
Oh, this is all part of the race into the top
Oh, yeah,
fiasco.
it is.
It's all
Beautiful.
related.
So if we
Yeah.
hold it out, we may get out of this whole thing completely?
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not willing to go there. Looks as if the Board of Regents are planning to propose an increase in about 2.3 billion in aid this year. Well, they blew it last year. They came in under the governor, and that was kind of a mistake. So I think they're trying to rectify that. An interesting thing has happened in a mid-state, small school known as the Tuxedo Union Free School. They've been struggling for years and finally decided that they wanted to really, step into it and have been granted permission to charter. Now, because they are in a rather unique area, they're also, and they decided to go a step further and see if they can't partner with their local BOCES. And believe me, our BOCES superintendents are really salivating over this because it would really, it would provide options for kids in charter schools they don't necessarily have right now. And you want to.
So when you become a charter school, you can't work in the BOCES anymore?
Well, that's one piece to it. Another piece to it, though, is that they're going to charge
Yeah.
$18,000 tuition.
Correct.
And then they're going to use that kind of money to honor all of their existing union contracts and hire people off contract. But because they're going to charge so much tuition, they'll have enough money to meet everybody's needs. So it's pretty unique. It's not.
It
In
is
that
unique.
particular school district.
And they're
of BOCES.
sincerely hoping it doesn't happen in Buffalo, which it very well could.
Right.
It's a lot to them.
18,000.
Yes, 18,000.
Okay. What else, Douglas?
There's some potential changes in the Regents exam schedules. They're going to be offering chemistry and algebra 2 and trig with the summer school schedule so that affords better opportunities for kids. The Regents exam schedules will be out soon, as I said. 3 to 8 ELA testing. There's some recent research done that perhaps that might be better done in a non-time constrained fashion. It's been done in some states, and there's a suggested time and then an extended allotment of time if you need it, which might relax some of the stress over all of that. And, I think I won't be going into 2008. 22.8. Okay. The only other issue with that was I discussed much polling places. The use of schools as polling places, and that has become a major discussion. I think. Well, because with our new security situation, if there is a problem of some sort, you wind up with it.
Because polling occurs during school hours.
It does occur during school hours, and they
So
have
it's a
discovered
security
people
issue.
wandering around the basement. Yeah, so it is.
All right, we're set?
CNY mostly has been involved with business partners and working with that. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Douglas. Administrator's report. So you have John listed here. Is he our sole proprietor?
He is. He's prepared some important information.
This is a where are they now sort of thing?
You betcha.
All right, let's hear it.
So, tonight I'm talking about post-secondary outcomes and what we're doing to help kids get there. what I wanted to start with was our school profile. I included that in your in the board packets. Tina sent those out with you. It looks like a letter. It's on letterhead. That's just something that I wanted to include so that you understood how we communicate and present ourselves to the colleges that our students go to. It's for those in the audience that didn't get a chance to see that, it's basically an overview of what our school looks like. It's like just a quick verbal description, and then it goes in and talks about the different awards and distinctions that our school has received, where our kids go, what they do, talks about our standardized test scores, the course levels, AP, honors, what regions, and it defines all those things so that when a person looks at our transcript, they know what it means when we say a student was in an honors class or an AP class and so on. It talks about how our class rank is determined, because some schools will use a weighted system, some use an unweighted system. We currently do use an unweighted system. Talks about how our grading scale goes and the different highlights of our school. But it's just something that we share. It goes out with it to every college that any student in Trumansburg applies to. They will get one along with the transcript. So, given all of that, that's describing our district to the colleges, but where do our kids go? Let me zoom in a little bit, see if I can make that a little bigger. So this is a stacked graph, 100% of our kids. So what you can see there is the bottom bar, the blue, represents the percentage of kids from each grade level or from each class going all the way back to 2001 that went to four-year colleges. And that reddish maroon line is those students that went to a two-year college. The small green band there represents students that went into the military. And you can see we have a small percentage each year that did that. We also have students that went directly into employment. That's the purple. And then the light blue is students that went into a foreign exchange program. And on 2011, we had one student who traveled for a year.
That's right, one student makes a percentage.
One student makes a percentage. So, the key here, and I'm going to switch to the next graph too, and it gives you an idea. This is the same exact information, just not stacked. So you can sort of see the trends, and we fluctuate from year to year. Remember that our class sizes going back to 2001 have ranged from a maximum of about 130 to a low of about 80. But within there, you sort of think about the fact that one student is roughly a percentage point. So we have some years where we're as low as 40% going to a four-year college. Other years we've been a little bit over 50% going to a four-year college. But this next slide gets into is sort of just focused on college placement. The red line at the bottom is two-year college placements. The blue line is four-year, and then the green line at the top is stacked. So all the percentage of all students going into some kind of college placement.
So it's peaked in 2010, right in the middle of the fiscal mess.
Yep.
Everybody decided to go to college.
Yeah.
No jobs out there.
Now, one of the things, and I know that you will see this data presented in other places, and sometimes there are inconsistencies that you will find. This next slide, actually, this is a comparison to national data. And again, I know there's six lines up here, but I'll point out, use my toy here. So the light blue line here at the bottom and this red line, the blue line is the national average for students going to a two-year college. Shaking hands. There you go. The red line is our numbers. Our numbers going to a two-year college. The darker blue and the purple line is the darker blue is our students going to four-year colleges. The blue is national average, and then the stacked one. This is sort of a better visual. The yellow line here, the gold line, is students going. That's the national average for all high school students across the nation going to college, and the green line is our students going to college. Now that data is based. The national data is based on what you'll hear, the National Clearinghouse, not the Publishers Clearinghouse, the National Clearinghouse, and it is a publication that comes out annually that is based on federal data, the FAFSA application and student social security numbers. They track where students go, and it's reported, so it's federal, basically federal forms that people submit. It's very important to note that this federal data around us is, I would say, skewed. because there are students who will not fill out a FAFSA form and will still go to college. So you can't look at that with 100% certainty. And what you'll find, I've got another graph later on that'll show about a 10% gap between what our students are reporting to us and what the National Clearinghouse is telling us our students are doing. So, and I'll show you that in a little bit clearer. So our students are going to college. Zoom back out of here. Are they ready for college? And this is, I think, probably your biggest question. Are our kids ready for college when they leave here? We do a very good job of getting kids into colleges. We have kids that get into some very prestigious institutions. So, and that's often a bragging point for our district, but are they really ready when they get there? I would argue that they are very prepared.
And we'd expect you to argue that.
Of course. So what I want to show you, this is some data that I've collected, and I get it from lots of different sources, but I have some data about the success of our students that go to TC3 and their overall success rates. I've got some information about the developmental coursework that students need to take if they go to TC3. I've also got some clearinghouse data that talks about the retention and graduation of our students that are going off to those 2- and 4-year colleges, so I'll share that. So this slide is representative of data that we received at a recent meeting with the folks at TC3. Their administration did a presentation. It was explaining why their programs are something that we should be encouraging kids to participate in. And this is their 3-year, full-time, first-time graduation rate. So this is the percentage of students that finished a degree program at TC3 within 3 years.
So it's a 2-year program.
2-year programs that they finished within 3 years. And so if the blue bar represents all students who went to TC3, the red bar represents students that went to TC3 from the local area high schools represented by TSD BOCEs. So you can see that students that come from our local high schools tend to do better than overall students. However, I don't know if you've glanced over at that percentage that we're talking about. We're talking about 30%. So our local high school students that go there after 3 years, there's about a 30% success rate. Now, but a lot of students don't.
For different reasons.
A lot of students will transfer out. So this isn't truly a graduation rate. Some kids may go there for a year and then transfer out. However, there's also data around first semester success rates. So I have some of that. This is our students compared to TSD BOCEs. This is first semester success. So our students who went there as full-time students in the first semester after high school, and you can see the red line is Trumansburg students from 2009 to 2013. The blue line is all TSD BOCEs area high school students. So you can see there's some years, 2 years we were below the average, 3 years we were above the average. 2013 we were at 90%. Now, don't get too excited. Since 2009, the other thing is that our enrollment, the percentage of students that we've actually sent to TC3 has gone down dramatically. So in 2009, we had, and that's this next slide, we had 38 students went to TC3 in 2009, but we only had 10 students that went there in 2013. But coming back to this, you'll see, again, we're talking about students in their first semester, so ranges from 50% for those 2 years to 90% in the most recent year. So there's a great deal of variability in terms of the level of success that our kids have shown at TC3. But it's much better than 30%. So again, now this is our enrollment, but the blue bar reflects all of the students from Trumansburg, from Charles O. Dickerson High School that graduated and are attending TC3, each going in as first year full-time students that year. The red bar reflects the number of students taking developmental courses. That means those are kids that took the AccuPlacer tests and did not qualify to go directly into the college level reading and writing or college level math. So the average for all students in TC3 is 58%. 58% of all students entering TC3 require developmental courses. Now for us, our percentage, as you can see, the percentage of all of our students going, hovers around 50%, because this is just numbers. If you look, those bars are about half the size, the red to blue. So you can see that we do have a fairly high percentage. Roughly half of the students that go to TC3 will require developmental courses in math or writing. So that's just TC3. This next set of data that I want to share with you is based on the clearinghouse information, and this was just released last week. And what the clearinghouse report that I receive, and I have it here, and if anybody would like copies of it, I can send you PDFs. It's a 45-page color document, so I won't print it out, but I'd be glad to email anybody that would like to take a look at it. But again, as I clarified before, it's based on data submitted by the colleges using Social Security numbers and FAFSA completed. So it does underrepresent our data. And just as a reflection on that, this chart shows the difference between what information we have locally based on our conversations with students and what the clearinghouse is publishing. The top two lines really reflect it the best because they don't get cluttered. The yellow line is what the National Clearinghouse is saying our kids are doing, and the green line is what our students are telling us they're doing. And that's based on our Student Services Office does a very thorough process in making sure that they know where our kids are going when they graduate.
So it's about a 10-point
So you can see it's about an average of about 10% gap between what they're saying and what we're finding. But that said, I want to go to, this is the actual report. This is the clearinghouse data. And this is just one excerpt, and I'll show a couple of years. Oh, where'd it go? Hang on. Bear with me. There it is. So what this graph, this is the class of 2009. Kids that graduated in 2009. In 2009 and 10, the first bar, this bar, is what they did that first year after they graduated from high school. The green is students who were new to college, and that shows 77.7% of our students went to college in 2009, and 22.3% did not. It doesn't, this doesn't get into the breakdown of military or employment. It just says college or no college. So then you can see that the second bar, this is now what happened their second year after high school, and you can see that the bottom in the red, or maroon there, that is the percentage of students who graduated or completed a college program of some kind, so probably a 2-year degree or something like that.
Because some kids leave here with enough credits to go to TC3 and be done in a year.
And I'm going to show you that data. That's that's one of my closing things. Then you can see that about 6.2% in green here were new to college. Those are kids that did not go their first year, but then decided to go to college their second year. The orange is students who were retained in college, stayed in school. The yellow is the percentage of students who are no longer in college and did not graduate. So kids who stopped attending college that year. So again, you can see over the trend, by the time we get to this being their fourth year, that 12-13 bar, you can see that we have about 43.8% of our students have graduated from college. We have a 0.something%, that's even too small, I can't even read it up close here. But a very, very minute percentage of kids that are starting college for the first time that year, and then we have 13.1% retained in college. So over the trend, over the course of 5 years, we're seeing about 60% of our kids either completing college or still in college and working towards that degree. So now, if I slide forward,
60%.
Around about 60%.
John, does it distinguish between 4-year colleges and 2-year colleges? Or?
No, not in this. There is other data in another part, but it doesn't really talk about outcomes for those kids. It just talks about enrollment. This is the one. The reason that I wanted to show this is because it really gets into the outcomes, what our kids are doing. So now this is the class of 2010. You can see similar results. When you get to that fourth year after college, kids are still enrolled, and we're hovering about high 60s, just below 70% retained. So a little bit better than the class of 2009. Then we go, this is the class of 2011. Now we're staying right at about that 70% mark of kids still in school. We have the class of 2012. and then, of course, 2014. And again, this is showing 70%, 70.7% of kids.
So we're remarkably consistent.
Yes.
There's only about a 10-point spread in any of these measures.
Yeah.
And it looks like about 3/4 of the kids leave and we lose about 10% that don't graduate. 3/4 of the kids leave to go to some college.
Yep.
And 60% of them actually graduate.
A certain percentage don't graduate.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so going back to 2011, this is class 2011, you can see that we lose a certain percentage. And it doesn't delineate between 2-year colleges or 4-year colleges, and so on. So, but that illustrates that we're hovering and from my take, it looks like we're getting about 60 to 70% from year to year that are moving forward and succeeding in college programs. The next, where we go? Come on. There we go.
Oh, now we know.
Oh, you're on the code.
Now we know code.
Too quick.
that again.
Why is it- Oh, let's put it on the slide.
Oh, we're gonna get the code again.
All right, so that's our clearinghouse data. This is that discrepancy we were talking about. Okay, so how do we prepare our kids for college? And these are the things that we're very intentionally doing to try to get our kids ready for school. The number one thing is getting them to challenge themselves with rigorous coursework while they're here. Taking AP classes is one of the best ways that we can prepare kids for college because it's equated with college level work. We also have students that are taking TC3 College Now credits, and that's something that I'm extremely proud of because that's one of the strongest things that we're doing compared to our other high schools in our region. And then also, within our school, we're also working on creating ways to remediate students that might not be ready for college right in their senior year of high school. And this is relatively new. Within the last 2 years, we've created a new course in math called Pre-College Math that is modeled after the Math 95 course. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're using that AccuPlacer test, which TC3 uses to assess readiness for college. We're using that here at the high school for diagnostic purposes to see if our kids are ready and let them know whether they are or aren't ready. So in reference to our AP program, for the class of 2000, right now, currently, this year, so any students moving forward, we currently are offering 9 AP courses in our building, and we also have 5 additional courses that we're offering through the online AP program. Of those 5, we only have students enrolled in 3 of them right at present. We have 12 students that are presently enrolled in those courses. And this is the first year that we're offering them. Last year, we had 11 traditional AP courses and no online AP courses. The difference between last year and this year in terms of that 11 traditional to 9 is based on courses that were cut. One because of staff cuts related to the budget, and one because of a new hire that wasn't able to teach it. Wasn't certified to do it, so one could potentially come back. The other course is AP Physics, which we made a decision not to offer because the College Board changed it from a 1-year to a 2-year program. So in order to take the class, students would have had to take 2 years of AP Physics, which would have prevented them from making another selection and rounding out. So we made a conscious decision to not offer AP Physics this year, but instead offer College Physics through TC3. So last year, class of 2014, during that school year, we had 199 AP exams taken by our students in our building in grades 10 through 12. And those exams were in 15 different courses. Now you'll note that we only offered 11 AP courses, but within our building, we have an incredible set of teachers that are willing to do independent studies with kids. They don't charge the kids, the teachers don't get any extra pay, they're simply doing it out of their personal commitment to our students in this school. So we had students taking AP exams in 4 additional courses because of independent studies that they did with teachers in our building. So from the 199 exams that were taken, 56% of those exams scored as a 3 or higher, which means that translates in many places to college credit because those will most colleges will take them. Not every college, but a lot of colleges will take them. We also utilize the TC3 program extensively, and this is something that I think we do better than a lot of high schools in our area, and I do like to brag about it. Last year, the senior, and this is just our senior class, which is 108 students, over their high school career, those students earned 1,635 college credits in 23 different courses that we've offered here in this building. 77% of our graduating seniors earned college credit. So that's an average of over 15 credits per senior. Now, not every senior earned credits. There was some kids that didn't take any College Now courses. But as a whole, when you think about the fact that the average senior graduating from this high school has already completed a semester of college. Now, I will also add to that TC3's own survey data shows that that students who take College Now courses are 80% they have an 80% success rate of completing their degree programs on time when they go to college. So kids taking TC3 College Now courses are more likely to finish a college program because of having taken this and had this experience. In addition to that, so drilling down a little further, we had 42 seniors, which represents 39% of the senior class, had earned over 15 college credits, which means they'd earned at least a semester. And we had 25 seniors, which is 23% of that class, earned over 30 college credits, which means they're going to college already done with 1 year's worth of college credits. And most schools will transfer these credits because they're college transcript legit. Especially all SUNY schools will. Cornell seems to be a little finicky about these certain things, but
You gotta get a 4, I think, to get the full credit.
so it's just, this is something that our staff has been very committed to. We actually had one student who graduated last year, had 61 credits, and earned an associate's degree prior to graduating from high school. She went down to TC3 and walked at the graduation ceremony last year at TC3 before coming to Trumansburg's graduation and graduating here. That is something, and I'm also going to say, just as a little note, that this year we have lost some of those courses, the 23 courses that we had last year. We don't offer all of those now because of budget cuts, because we've lost some of those courses. And that it's just something to consider as we move forward and we face budget cuts. You know, it's the realities. So the next one I wanted to share with you is this pre-college math program. It is modeled, as I said earlier, around the Math 95, which is the developmental course that our students would be taking at TC3 if they don't test as ready for Algebra 2, which is the first course that students take in college. We currently have this year 31 seniors that are enrolled in that course. And all of the students that are in that course took the Accuplacer test in math, which helped provide the teacher and the students with very important information. Because one of the things that's important in this is that taking the Accuplacer test, you don't get to use a calculator, which is a really big deal for a lot of our kids who are very dependent on calculators. It's just an observation. And Scott Voorhees, who's teaching the course, will tell you it's a constant battle, getting the kids to be able to do and relearn. They're relearning how to do basic math calculations without using a calculator. We are also looking at expanding our use of the Accuplacer test this year. My hope is to have a large percentage of our junior class take the Accuplacer test to help inform those students as they're making course selections for next year, so that if they test at a level that would place them in Math 95, they can go directly into it for next year. We also we have not used the Accuplacer test for the reading and writing, and we would like to do that too, so that students are better informed going into their senior English. In part just to get them to take it a little bit more seriously, because they may realize that, oh, well, I'm not quite ready for college level work. So, in summary, our data is showing that we are above the national averages for college placement and success rates. However, we obviously have room for growth. You know, to brag about 70%, 60% success rates, to me, just doesn't seem like something we would brag about. Comparing that to national averages, we are above average, and we are doing a very good job, I think, relative to a lot of schools, and including schools in our area. When you look at that TC3 College Now program, the fact that we had 42 students earn over 15 credits, compared to Ithaca High School, which has 300 students in their senior class last year, only had 5. Lansing had 7. So we have a.
So it's a focal point of our program.
So that's something that we're doing really, really well, and we're getting a lot more kids through. And again, and that is directly tied to things that, skills that will help our students be more successful. So, last slide. Moving forward, we want to continue to support and expand the use of AP and College Now courses. We do have open enrollment for our AP courses. Some schools will restrict enrollment in AP courses. If you're not of the caliber of a student to take an AP course, they won't let you take it. Where here we try to encourage all students to challenge themselves. And we want to continue to offer those College Now courses to prepare our students. We want to expand the use of the AccuPlacer assessment data, as I've shared. I've also been talking with my leadership team, the team of teachers here in the building, and Robin, our Dean of Students, is really interested in this. Expanding freshman orientation and making it more of a full high school long mentoring program where kids would meet with teacher mentors over the course of their 4 years so that we could give them opportunities to teach some of those soft skills that aren't intentionally taught in any one content in our building but are so critical to the success of our students when they graduate. And then also, obviously, we want to continue to expand our college and career counseling using our student services. Right now, with the recent cuts that we've made to our counseling office, they really are dealing with nothing but crisis and mental health issues. If there is an opportunity as we move forward to bring back some of that counseling staff, it would really behoove us in terms of getting kids, and this goes right in with STEM, giving kids real good information about where they're at and helping them looking at college and career placements. Which right now they're limited in their ability to do so because of limited staff.
Clarifying questions for John before we hear from our student representative, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
Do you have any data, John, on how many of our students do go directly into the workforce? And
Yes.
where they go?
Not where they go,
But-
only just the percentages of
Yeah.
kids, and that's
Okay.
based on,
We saw that data.
yeah,
It's
that's
about 20%.
Yeah, it's
that-
about 20%.
the very first slide. This is based on our locally collected data. So students, what they're reporting to us. And if you look in your board packet, there's a chart that I included with that. Looks like this,
Okay.
and it'll tell you the specific numbers of kids that went directly into employment. And it breaks it down. It has the information about numbers of kids going to the military,
Right,
foreign exchange,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
on.
The other question or comment I had is that another thing BOCES has picked up on is that there's really very little in the way of training out there for guidance counselors. And they are looking at starting a program that might, once or twice annually offer some training, which I think would be very helpful.
And
If they have the
I'm not sure what
time.
you're referencing. There's New York State certification guidelines for
Yeah.
school counselors.
Yeah.
What do you mean there's not training?
In our area, we don't do a lot for them.
BOCES
You mean
does
continuous
offer
professional
guidance
development.
counselors training.
In addition, so
Professional-
additional, there's some really additional
professional
professional
development.
development.
I put that the wrong way.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So
Now,
see how
our-
defensive she got? She
No.
does have certification.
Just wanted to say there's lots of certifications.
No, if there's a budget expense there, she's got it.
And our counselors do belong to TACA,
Yes.
Tompkins Area Counseling Association, so they
They
do
have
have a
some.
professional network that they're linked with.
Right, and I think BOCES is just going to enhance.
Other questions for John?
Just a quick one. Any of this information correlated with any kind of economic data?
Not that I have access to.
Because that could significantly impact the number of students who don't finish.
Well,
I'm
that
sure it does.
20% is roughly our free and reduced lunch number. I'm not saying those are directly correlated, it certainly wouldn't necessarily be, but that's very similar. I think our free and reduced hovers between 25 and 30 every year, doesn't it? Isn't that?
We
I
just
think our
did
free
that.
and reduced is closer to 30, just about
Closer to
35%.
35, 38, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much the closest economic data we get. Right? We do have a lot of our performance measures that track that data, though, right? That do correlate. Test performance is one of them, right? We saw a lot of that data in the retreat,
Right.
right, where we see they separate it out. Economically disadvantaged is what they call it, right? But this data doesn't appear to be available in that.
Not specific to college, yeah, we have assessment data, but not
Not specific.
clearinghouse.
Other questions for John? Olivia, nice to see you. You did a wonderful job in the jazz band the other night. Well, that's
Thank you,
all.
that was a lot of fun. Well, most of what I have prepared has to do with the Verizon Tower, which I actually met with Mr. McGuire earlier to talk about. But in reference to what Mr. King just said, I know that a lot of students find the AP courses and like the College Now programs really important to them. And I know that a lot of them, like I've heard from speaking to people, they were really disappointed by like hearing about the budget cuts and about hearing about the cuts and like therefore a lot of the courses. So.
Good. Good?
Good. Basketball team's doing really well, 2-0. Boys basketball 2-0, girls basketball 1-2, but they've been like combined losses by like 5 points. But
Great, we're playing.
big test tomorrow night against Moravia and Friday night against Lansing.
Home? On our new gym floor?
New gym floor, home games against Moravia tomorrow night, Lansing Friday night, so
Excellent.
hope to see you there.
Okay, we're ready for consent. Anyone interested in taking anything out of consent? Go ahead, John.
One thing, sorry, concerts tomorrow night and Thursday night also.
And it's
Big deal.
Thursday.
Tomorrow is the concert for 3rd through 6th grade chorus, and Thursday is bands. Lots of big bands.
And we had vocal and jazz the other night,
Yeah.
which was absolutely spectacular. Such a
Yeah.
set for that stuff. Anything from the consent agenda anyone wants to pull out? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion for 10A through F.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. So now we'll take up the new business. A donation of $325 from the elementary school PTO to the for a field trip to the Cuba Nature Center. Any motion? And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Thank you. We thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Acceptance of the tax collector's report. Any motion?
So moved.
And a second? Okay, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Approval of merger of schools. This is the South Seneca merger that Jason talked to us about. Any motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion about the merger. Any final questions or comments for Jason before we take this up for vote?
If we act on it now, does this put us in line that we could still go either direction here? That we could go?
I think this would,
If we get left at the altar by South Seneca, can we go marry somebody else?
Because if we acted on it before January 1st, would this allow us, if South Seneca doesn't agree with us?
it would give us a good base to be able to go somewhere else if need be.
Works.
A good base meaning what, Jason?
We'd have an argument that.
We would have something to use to our advantage and say,
okay.
look, we went this way, we were all in for this, they stepped back, didn't allow it, so they wouldn't have to create a schedule for us per se, we would just be joining another team.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this is, you mentioned before that Section 4, I guess, has to have approval by January 1st.
Yep.
And then Section 5, a week or two before the play starts.
But he just said South Seneca's gonna take this up at their next board meeting.
But in the event that they don't, by us doing this today, does this put a sound foundation, so if South Seneca doesn't, we've already made action
Yeah.
before January 1st.
So I guess the question is Section 4 going to give us any kind of break if we come to them in February and say, we'd now like to merge with the Section 4 team?
Yes.
I would like to think so.
Again,
Legally, I don't
yeah.
know.
I mean, this is to
I-
protect, this is the
Yeah.
whole competitive thing versus participation thing. I don't think a month, they gotta cut us some slack. We'll go
I
bang on the
would-
desk over there,
yeah.
Gary. We'll send you to do it.
All right.
Can I
We can
contribute
get-
to this?
Go ahead, Michael, let's hear it.
I think Section 4 would really prefer that both the Newfield board, if that was to be the board, the school, and our board would approve this merger before January 1st. However, if we're not, as Jason's, if we're not going to look to Newfield, just the fact that the board is acting on approving a merger tonight helps, but it also helps us in talking to South Seneca. I've spoken with their superintendent, he's very positive about this, he's told their board Obviously now their athletic director knows. I think this gives Jason a lot of momentum in beginning to talk to them, and let's get the details.
Are they gonna have a football team without us?
Yes.
They
Yes.
will have one.
Okay.
They will,
They can field a
Struggle
team
with
without
them.
our 16 players.
yes.
Why are we a benefit to them?
Why are we a benefit to them?
Because we got good football players in this town.
Well, because, first of all, they're looking long-term. South Seneca's talking long-term, so this is just a one-year thing, and then we'll decide all this a year.
Well, also, they may need the field.
Yeah, they also
Yeah,
need a
that
field.
would be a
that's-
benefit.
If,
Yeah.
if
For
their
them. If
capital
their-
project passes tomorrow,
Yeah.
they'll need a field to play on. And also, I think they see it as, we're all kind of together up here on the side of the lake, and it's good for both communities to have a stronger, larger pool of players.
Further discussion about this item before we take it for vote, go ahead.
How many players are we talking about on each side? Do you know approximately? how many?
I would say approximately 16 to 19 players from our school, and then from their school, maybe 20.
Wow, that'd be a good team.
Be a big
So
team.
that would be ideal, and the more numbers would increase competition, not only amongst the squad, but amongst other schools as well.
Do you have any
Oh,
sense,
go ahead, Peter, finish up.
do you have any sense of the feeling among the kids that want to play football in T-Bird? Do they have
A lot of the kids honestly really don't care.
okay.
They just want to play football.
Yeah.
Who we're hearing stuff from is parents.
Right.
And we held a meeting. Unfortunately, only a couple parents showed up to express their concerns. But they basically portrayed the same thoughts as the kids as. they don't
Our
really-
responsibility as a board is to offer football to the kids. This is the only reliable way for us to do it. If everybody's gonna gripe about that, oh, then we don't like it like this, and we don't like it like that, well, then we shouldn't gripe when we don't have football. That's the way I feel about it.
Will this allow us, if there's this many potential players, will it allow us to reestablish JV football?
That is what we talked about today. Ideally, for the first year, we would just want to focus at the modified and varsity level. So do a mod A team and a varsity level team combined. With hopes that down the road, maybe we could install a modified, a JV and varsity team.
Go ahead,
I think
Gary.
that would be a little much for this year.
Go ahead, Gary.
Does South Seneca have any feeling for how Section 5 will feel about this merger?
They have contacted them and they said that it would be fine. So I know we have talked
Yeah.
about bad blood from the Rochester area,
Yeah.
teams from outside Section 5 moving in to wall other teams. But
Other comments?
And
Go ahead,
have we effectively stopped courting Newfield and focused solely on South Seneca? And if so-
I would say so, only because with South Seneca, it's more equitable. And there was one other thing.
Closer.
Travel,
It's
sir.
closer, it's much closer for travel.
Those are for practices as well, too.
Practice, we got a field.
Yeah,
This makes
and
perfect
the
sense.
5-year thing with South Seneca. Newfield was looking at more of a short term, we'll help you guys out, where I think our focus should be more in the long term.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, the 5 years and beyond.
Further questions? Ready for a vote?
So when it says, well, I have a question, just because you brought this up now, because, so this says for the 2015-16, but you're implying that this is really for 2015 to 2020. So are we voting on a merger for 1 year or 5 years?
We gotta do it every year.
Yeah, I would say it would have to be done every year. There may be a gentlewoman's agreement that we move forward for 5 years. So I don't know how we want to
We're
take
only
care of
struggling
that.
with this now. Small schools all over the state are gonna have this same dilemma. The sections have to get out of the way.
Yeah, and I
And let
think
us
the
figure
big
this out.
focus on setting the merger deadline was to build schedules. And if we're not gonna have a team by ourselves, I don't think that's gonna affect. If something did happen with South Seneca, I feel that we could join another team that already has a schedule built.
And we'll just
So,
play.
yeah, and that would be fine.
Now we're good? Very good?
I'm good.
Good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're there? Very nice. The Bonadillo Group wants a bunch of money for a few years from us for auditing services from 2015 to 2019. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. I need a motion
So moved.
in a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'm
Looks like
more
it's-
comfortable going out 5 years on this. I mean, I think they're a respectable group and stuff, but
Pretty
how do you feel?
Standard, every 5 years, we need to go out with a new RFP,
Yes.
and we've had them for the past 3 years.
But wasn't there a point where they suggested changing?
Many districts will continue on with the same group, but we did, as the state required us to do, go out with a new RFP. We started with Bonadeo 3 years ago. First year was absolutely rocky. This last 2 years, they changed the group that worked with us, and it has been outstanding on both their part and our part. So at this point, we put it out there, we read through the proposals, and Michael and I and our treasurer felt that we were still pretty happy moving forward with Bonadeo. And it is quite common practice to go out for 5 years at a time.
But at one time, and in several of these trainings I've been attending, they recommend that you don't utilize the same firm for more than 5 years.
That is a recommendation, however, it is the district's choice, and if you understood the amount of work to prepare for auditors, it's significant. So when you get into a groove that is working and you understand the expectations, my treasurer has about 3 years remaining with us, and we're still fairly new to this group, I believe. So based on what they presented in their proposal, I'm very comfortable moving forward with them again, and especially because we just switched the group that actually worked with us 2 years ago. Many districts, you'll see, they go out with a new RFP every 5 years, and they continue to stay with the same firm.
I think also our previous experience of a very small firm. This one is huge.
And in fact, they just merged.
Yes,
I just
it's
read, and I don't
immense.
recall the group but they're one of the largest now in New York State, if
Actually,
not the
they
largest.
are our auditor in Nisbet.
Yeah.
And we have been incredible.
We have particular sensitivity to this issue,
Yes,
given our past history.
Oh, I know.
So that's why we'll
That's why
ask
I
a few
brought
extra
that
questions
up.
about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we'll take your recommendation. I think there also is concern to a certain extent that that comfort that you develop can be problematic at times. I think we had that with the previous group, and we have letters that, had to be changed 2 and 3 years after the fact. So like, we have a little history, and as long as you assure us, I think John's point is well taken. This is asking for an additional 5-year commitment, which puts us 8 years out. Can we break this thing at any time without having to pay them off?
There would be some sort of penalty.
Or could we
in
make it a
in
3-year
certain
deal?
too. Keep in mind, though, each year they are sampling different areas. So even though it's the same auditing firm, they're not looking at the exact same items every year. So there is that change from year to year where they're sampling different things from our district. One of the features that I like about them is that on a frequent basis, there's items that come up that we really need that expertise, and they've been extremely accessible to us and always provide us with the correct guidance. So that's a huge
Valuable
customer
big firm.
service piece
Yeah.
that from a big firm you can reach out to and get the correct answers.
That is the value of the big firm.
Further discussion about this, John?
Well, I worked with them, and I thought that they did a very good job. I just kind of not getting comfortable.
Good.
Good questions.
We're there?
Good.
All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay. Now the
I
Verizon.
abstain.
I'm sorry, you
I abstain.
You abstain, okay, one abstention. So this is the Verizon lease agreement. Thanks for hanging in there with us, Verizon folks. I need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
So, yeah.
Second. Okay, so we're there now for discussion. We are being handed a white paper that basically summarizes this contract.
Yeah, and just the things we need to talk about this evening.
Do you have a few more of these?
Yeah, let's see, Tina, can you hand it?
I'll share.
Go. No.
We're good?
Do you still need one more?
We're good, everybody need them?
Okay.
I can share with Tina, we're good? Okay, so looks like we have the location. Original location no longer an option due to the deed placed on Newport Woods. Location too far back of campus. Do we have a picture of that or want to talk
Yeah, I'm
about it?
wondering, Jonathan, I sent it to you in an email. Is there a chance you could pull that up and see if it got delivered to you? Otherwise, I'll try to use my iPhone.
If not, I have hard copies.
So,
Yeah, I have hard copies as well, so let me just see if we can put it out. Or you can pass it down. Why don't you do that?
You have enough for everybody?
I think I've got 7.
And I have.
So pass them that way. We've got one here we can look at.
Alright.
And then, location 2, and then there is the financial arrangement associated with it.
Roll view.
Did you get the email? Okay, can you just turn on the Apple TV, and I think I can try it on my phone, at least what I've got. Joe.
There you go.
No, that would be section.
And so,
Like Delhi.
yes,
Would have to explain Delhi, that would be.
I got it.
can you blow that up?
Yep.
Okay, Joe,
Yes,
can
but
we-
there's.
can you take the pointer and take your pointer and show us?
Like there's no IECs.
Yeah.
It's off the.
Tell me where, if you can just, I just zoomed in.
Is that good?
So this is right out.
Well, it's basically in the trees right out in left field of the base. I think Joe can orient us now there, so we can all see the same thing.
Okay, so now we're looking at the current location, which looks like it's in the bottom right.
So this is the original location. The hashed area is Newport Woods property. So that area is kind of off limits to us. Our original proposed second location is here, which is the same as what Brett just handed out. You know, so what I did was, as Michael said, well, is there any other location that would be feasible? And you know, I'm thinking in terms of construction and access and stuff like that. I felt like this location here, north of our soccer fields, which basically are kind of right here, side by side. I thought that right at the tree line there would be a potential for a third location if all parties thought that that was feasible. Our location here, which Brett handed out, there's some potential issues with roadways and stuff, but I think that that's something that we can work out with them, just to make it feasible for the work that they'll need to do.
Well, just a second.
Sure.
So take us down from alongside the football field. You and I walked that this morning, and I don't
Yeah.
see how that can be an access road, so you have to explain that to me.
Okay, so the
just
concern
take
with that access road is this impingement here. So between the end of the building and the edge of the edge of the tennis courts, if my conversations with Verizon prior, if that radius has to be 75 feet, that could be a challenge. I don't know though, and I'm going to rely on their engineers to do the layouts. But that's one potential problem. And then
what about the new paving there? We just paved most of that right behind the bleachers and the
so this
handicap
is
parking that.
yep, this is all brand new paving all the way out to about this point right here.
And then
So-
you cut through the throwing areas or the.
Right, the throwing areas that you're referring to
Right
are
there.
about right in here. So again, that radius that could potentially be challenging because we can't go out too far beyond the brand new turf because then we're going to hit our existing soccer field turf. So that's why I kind of show this access road back here because we can hug the tree line, not affect the existing tree line here, potentially get beyond the fence between Newport Woods and the baseball field with some minimal disturbance here. And then once we get back here where it widens up, they would be able to get that radius that they need for their access as well. So, you know, this is new to Brett because I put it together late this afternoon. But there's two options for access to this area, both that would still need to be worked out with Verizon.
The other thing too, if there was sun shining, I'd pull the drapes open or the blinds, and you could see that there's quite a hill there. Our kids run up and down that hill, and I don't know, I mean, I just was trying to envision an access road with a retaining wall on both sides. I don't know how that works too, because I don't see a grade going up like that, like the hill for an access road.
And the access road is the cost you bear.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
There are
talking about this
engineers that
area,
design.
Michael, right up in here?
Yep, I'm just talking right
Yeah,
off
so-
the pavement here, it goes up a hill.
So that's a challenge that I don't think is too difficult with my experience with grading.
No,
I think
that was originally worked out for the original tower
Yeah.
location, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I don't think that.
So,
the
so
grading-
not much around, I mean, we have these two locations, we have two proposed roadway options that we have to consider. So that's the one piece of the issue. Do we want to ask a bunch of questions about this location stuff before we get into the money stuff? We take this in pieces?
When the access road was put in, where you are setting it from the back parking lot up to the side of the football field, was there a weight calculation that we put the blacktop in for?
Yeah, I suspect that that's not heavy-duty asphalt.
Because it was put in basically for ambulance,
Right.
like fire truck.
Yeah, it's probably a standard-duty asphalt there.
So it could take this traffic.
It can take regular traffic.
Regular traffic.
You know, heavy, I'm not sure what type of equipment they're gonna bring in for the construction, but heavy duty, you know, big trucks and
Cranes.
heavy trailers and stuff that.
Yeah, if there's any damage to it, we're gonna repair it anyway. But our engineers would take a look at it to see what's there, and then go from there. If it needs to be temporarily shored up beforehand, we do that, and then any restoration after the fact for any damage. That's on us.
Well, I go back to some of the statements I made, I think 2 weeks ago about this. First off, we just spent $7+ million in a fantastic sports complex. And adding on to Peter's comment about the neighborhood, we're trustees of the village, the property here for all of its citizens, and I don't think, regardless of the financial benefit, unless it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, is worth our time.
Peter, where are you on the neighbor effect with these new locations?
You know, it's a 200-foot tower.
It's not 200 feet.
120.
Originally designed for 120 in the North Woods.
Oh, 120, that's right, I'm sorry.
And may need to be increased to pace depending on the exact location and topography, because we are losing a little bit of grade, obviously, and we would need to make up for that potentially in tower height.
Okay. And our light poles out there are 70.
Our light poles are 70.
If you look out there at the football lighting poles, they're 70.
Minimum of.
Okay, so.
I feel the same I felt last time. I think the location doesn't change my feeling about it at all.
Okay, about the neighbor effect.
Yeah.
Okay. And John, there's no amount of money that they're presenting here that changes your mind
No,
about this.
none of
Let's
it.
get the rest of the board on this. Where are you, Jane?
I'm not gonna hear what the rest of the board said.
You. Go ahead. Olivia, let's hear from you. Go on.
I have a question, so with the red line, with that, right, hugging like the tree line and coming down right beside the baseball field?
The woods, yeah?
Yeah, is that behind, because I know that right now, don't we have like that blue kind of tape thing that comes around and it hugs it? Would it be behind that, and is that
Yeah.
enough air?
Yeah, we have a lot of room between the back of the baseball field and where this Newport,
Deed is.
Newport deed is. I did a measurement in CAD. We have about 50 feet between the edge of that line and the edge of the fence. You know, that was back here at this corner though, because our property line is right here and then turns. So from here to there, you have 50 feet. So here to here is going to be closer, you know, 20, 25 feet, which is about what they need to get their vehicles in. I mean, I don't want to speak for Brett, but his proposal is to have the access road this over here and just run utilities back here, which would certainly work as well. Just being 10 feet would be a lot easier to get the utilities in there.
And that would, with that road, that would interfere with like the shot put and like the discus kind of area, the throwing pits?
In this area, we would have to design the road so that there wouldn't be interference.
Glenn?
I'll just wait to vote.
No further discussion? Gary, a question?
In terms of the annual increase,
There
So if we are asking for our 5 years up front, is that annual increase included in that?
Yes, it is.
And no disrespect intended, I was led to believe that your offer last time was your final best offer, and this is now doubled. So how close are we to your final best offer?
That is it right there in front of you.
Okay.
I do have one question. The $250 per month per additional carrier on average, how often do you get additional carriers, and what might be an average number of additional carriers that might be?
Depends on who's licensed in the area and how aggressive they are in building out their network. I would guess that AT&T would co-locate on it, and potentially T-Mobile in the future, but I'm crystal balling it.
Right.
And we're also gonna get our emergency service stuff up there.
Yeah.
For
free.
For free.
Correct. All you have to do is fill out an application so we have knowledge of the frequencies just to make sure there aren't any interference issues.
And I don't know that I don't personally know if our emergency people even need that, but I remember it
Right.
from the first time. Any other discussion about this guy, Gary?
Can you ballpark a figure for how much this construction is going to cost Verizon?
About 100,000.
How long will it take?
Construction, we like to say about 2 months. Not to say that it will be that long and there will be people on site every day, but from start to finish, walking on site to job completion, roughly about 2 months. Depending on weather too, because we do build year round. Spring and summer might be able to consolidate down to something a lot smaller, but there are certain phases that we have to go through.
And what time of year do you estimate doing this?
Sooner the better.
So you have to get through SED, right? So because we have to go through SED, do we get a clerk of the works here? Do we get a Mike DePerna sort of managing this project, or you guys handle everything?
We typically handle everything with a little bit of help from the school district, just to make sure that they're aware. You know, there's a little hand holding to work together with it. You have another question?
Brett, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Kimberly.
So our emergency equipment requires us to rent repeaters, and it's about, don't quote me, $15,000 a year. So if that equipment was put on this tower, does that eliminate our need to lease those repeaters?
You're leasing equipment repeaters from whom?
I think I can better answer that. So we have a contract with a firm out of Portland, where we purchase our two-way communication, but they do FCC licensing for us. They rent us repeaters throughout the areas at about $15,000 a year between my two departments. So the equipment we own, right? We just don't own
on-campus
space on. Yeah, we just don't own the.
So are you saying this tower's gonna save us $15,000?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
It depends on whether you're renting equipment or tower space. I don't know what the breakdown is. That 15,000 is going to include the use of the equipment and use of the tower space.
We own the equipment.
We own the equipment. I suspect that we rent the use of the repeaters, and then wherever they're located throughout the valley where we need them to be. So in my mind, if this proposal goes through, then I can effectively look to getting out of that contract for next fiscal year and just using our own equipment, which may require capital expenditure up front to buy repeaters or to get on another Verizon tower across the valley or whatever it's going to be. But that would be something that I would be interested in looking at.
And this is a part because the signals, cell phone signals don't work everywhere.
Part that, and then part of me just looking and saying, wow, for two-way radio communication. But it's, everything's always open for discussion, but one of the questions that I asked myself when Verizon first came is if there's a tower here, would we be able to purchase a repeater and then put it on the tower so that our two-way communication could go from us having to put it somewhere else to our own campus.
What is a repeater called?
I don't know off the top of
Go
my
ahead,
head.
John.
I'd just like to add, not only it's taken us an awful lot of years to get this field the way we wanted it, and thanks to the drive and the community for getting it up here and approving the monies to do it, that once again, the potential lifespan of this tower is, I believe you said the last time, was up to 49 years. I am concerned
We've
about...
had some additional information come to light since then.
Yeah, your school district, we are, and check this with your attorney because I've spoken with him, we cannot enter into a lease for more than 10 years with the school. So at the end of 10 years, we'd have to come back to you and you would have the sole discretion as to whether you want to proceed for another 10 years. We can't even build it as an option. So we are capped at 10 years under education law.
And after 10 years, what do we do with the tower if you say no, if we say no?
Take it down,
We
it's
take
in
it
the
down.
lease, and we restore the property as near its original condition as possible.
Just one other quick question, although I'm kind of making the assumption it's proprietary information. What do you charge co-locators a month?
$250, it's right here.
No.
No?
No.
No.
Oh, what do you charge them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That depends on equipment.
Pardon?
That depends on their equipment.
Ballpark idea?
Weight and wind loading,
It's-
and a lot of those, the other municipalities, the companies going on Verizon towers are typically the other providers.
Right.
T-Mobile, Cell One, so we have a reciprocal agreement where when we go into an area, we can go on their towers. I don't know the answer to that question, what it's charged, but it's affected that way. It's basically a swap, and I don't know how we account for when we're on more or they're on more, but it's not market necessarily.
So can you speak a little to the repeater situation here? What can you offer us in terms of that?
Can certainly offer you space on the tower facility, but not knowing the technology and how it works, we'd certainly have to take a look at it, and we're obviously more than willing to explore the option. I don't know as far as antennas, what are used now, and if the 3 that are in the area could be consolidated to be 1 and be put on the tower and serve the same area.
That would be something that we would have to work with an engineer on to really guide us. I can't determine how many repeaters we need throughout the valley to connect the two-way communication. So we would have to work with a Verizon or a Hunt or someone to help us with the RF engineering to determine if we put a repeater on this tower, where else would we need it so that our buses and our buses mainly still have communication back to home.
So there's no way currently of knowing whether Verizon would be able to substitute this service?
It's a matter of whether the technology we're using affects the cell service.
Yeah, and the locations. So in the end, you're gonna have to use, you must have a service that looks into this. And we've got RF engineers as well. But in the end, you have to design a system.
Yep.
What are you trying to cover? What equipment are you using? Where are towers that you may or may not be able to use? And you have to, we're not gonna be able to answer that tonight. This is new to us,
Yeah.
unless you've heard about it
No, this is the
before.
first time.
But you're gonna have to take a look at it. So what we can do is perhaps offer tower space, certainly on this one, and perhaps on others.
Yeah.
But we need to know what you need.
Right.
And we
Right.
can't tell you tonight what you need. We have to
Yeah,
work
exactly.
with the
It's gotta
district to
be
find out what it is you
engineered.
need. But to the extent you're paying that money for tower space, that's something we may be able to help with. To the extent you're paying that for equipment, we have to buy the equipment to put on.
And to what extent are we spending money for tower space? $15,000?
Right now, we have a contract for equipment service, so if a walkie-talkie
Right.
breaks, they service it. And then all of the licensing that's required, and then the rental of a specific number of repeaters spread out throughout our
Bus
area,
area.
busing area.
That's likely rolled into one fee, so it's
Yeah,
probably not
it's-
broken down between
it's
equipment
not.
and they're providing that service, but a certain amount of that service, their cost, or the value, is in tower space, and a certain amount of that is in the hard equipment. And I don't
So
know
we
what
can
the
get more
right-
information about that if that adds to the bottom line. Mr. Hart?
Yeah, I have a question.
No, Mr. Hart.
Mr. Hart?
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a Miss Hart there too.
Will the board state for the record what the financial terms of the lease are that you'll be voting on?
No.
Thank you.
Why?
We can, yes, you can. It's not an executive session.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, there's a $1,500 a month offer. The front to 5 years is a 3% annual increase, $250 per month per additional carrier, and they'll support $5,000 toward the cost of legal expenses if the board approves the lease.
And so what's the lump sum after the yearly increase calculation that they'll pay?
100,000. Wow.
45,000?
It's 90,000 over 5 years and about $540 each year with a 3% increase.
Thank you.
Dennis, did you have a question?
I did have a question.
Let's hear it.
Having raised teenage sons, what's to stop this from becoming a new senior stunt? I mean, if you put a 120-foot tower in my backyard.
We talked about this at the last meeting, and the best answer we can give is they go to great lengths to deter, which includes high fence, barbed wire.
The climbing pegs are also above grade, and you'd need a pretty substantial ladder to get to the climbing peg, so climb it after you breach the barbed wire fence.
And it's also not, it's not an open lattice work facility, so they can't climb the tower. It is just
No,
smooth like a
simple.
light pole. Same way you've got 70-foot light poles out there. The same, it would be the same deterrent.
Right. Okay, further questions from the board? Go ahead, Peter.
I'm a little uneasy about how much control of the process and the net result the district would have. I mean, we don't really know the best path to get there. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think that Brett and I were going to start putting our heads together. He was kind enough to send over the plan that he handed out and said, this is basically a first shot at it. It's by no means contractual or a finished plan, and he said he'd be more than willing to work with us to make it work for the district. So, and then this, what you see here is just me doodling and coming up with what I thought would be viable options, which, you know, there may be another option, you know, I mean, we can look at different, a bunch of different, there's not a lot, right. Once you get into the backside of our property back here, then basically you have just one way in and one way out, so. But up in main campus up here, there's really not any place that I thought we would want to consider being between our buildings. I didn't think that would be.
Okay.
Can this?
Can I ask a question? One of the curiosities that I have is the improved cell signal within our buildings, because right now, the inside of our buildings, which are cement blocks, is atrocious.
That's why we're here.
I can't make a cell phone call from my office without it cutting out. You can't, there's no chance of making a call in the hallway. And again, our lives become more and more dependent on cell service, cell phones, so I don't know, how much is that gonna change?
Drastically improved, and that's why we're here. It's what drive us to create search areas like this are data, that raw data that tells us we have so many failed attempts, which is an attempted call that didn't connect, or we have so many dropped calls. That data drives us to get out in the field and solve that problem. So
Just
we're well aware of the
other options
issue.
in the area, John.
Right.
The water tower.
Yeah, Peter.
So this question's for the gentleman from Verizon. Are there other school land that you've done this on? And
Yes.
if so, would you be willing to share, if you haven't already, that
We already
information?
Yeah, they have.
We do have.
We do.
I just want to make sure that took place,
Yes,
so you have baseline.
More commonplace than you think,
Okay.
because
I just want to make
obviously
sure
a
there was
lot
a
of
baseline.
users are within the school district.
We don't have the financial arrangements with those. We simply have the names.
Yeah.
Financial?
Yeah, we don't know the
arrangements might be
contracts they
interesting
signed with
those.
us.
That might be
We
interesting.
could get
to
them,
know,
they're in
too.
public record if we want. The question before us tonight is to accept the terms of the lease agreement, which you have in front of you there. We need some more questions before we take a vote. I have one,
Should we
but-
have Verizon users recuse themselves from this vote if they have Verizon?
I have
I would hate to think they were gonna get better cell service off their vote.
I mean, I think the bigger,
You're better.
the point that came up, the only point lingering for me was, we got information that suggested
Do you have
it
Verizon?
could potentially go some, let me know when you're done with your Verizon conversation.
I was just asking.
All right. So, the various places that it could go that could still generate income because of the tax improvements that we were told this affords, right? If we're not the place, they like this spot somewhere that's likely going to impact our tax base,
Yes.
right? I guess we would assume, I'm trusting you to a certain extent, to tell me.
So essentially, what you're saying is, let's equate it to someone builds a very small home in the district. We don't necessarily see the impact of the increased revenue from that assessment value.
So that's what this would be.
Because my levy is always the same, our levy is always the same, and we always get that levy. And so we really don't pay attention to who's contributing to make that levy complete.
But as a result,
And so this would be no
everyone else is
different. This would be, so essentially there's another small increase in assessed value out in the community and more money will come in and, it's like the veterans tax exemption. Again, it really doesn't impact the school. We will always get what we require on the levy. It's just where it's spread out.
Does this money have to go into a specific account, Kimberly?
No, it's revenue.
As opposed to tax money?
Tax money is also just revenue.
Okay. So we can direct it any way we want.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry to ask again, but clarify, so what does it equate to in terms of a yearly?
$18,000.
$18,000, which is the cost of maybe
an aid.
Less school monitor.
Not even.
Compared to $2 million monthly budget that we have.
Back to Mr. John's question in terms of improved service. So if this goes someplace else, won't our service be improved also?
Potentially on an exact location, it would, yes. Not to the same degree, obviously, but yes. The way that it works is the closer you are to the signal or tower facility, the faster throughput and data rates you have to your phone, and the better coverage you have in building as well.
We're good?
We're good, let's hear it.
We're good? Okay, so we'll put our hands up so we know what's what, right? So all in favor of the lease agreement, raise your hand. All opposed? Everybody's opposed but me. So that's 6-1. So, sorry about that, fellas.
Thank you for your time.
No problem.
Thank you.
So at this time, we have open forum. Members of the community who have weathered the 2 hours and 15-minute meeting, sorry about that would like to speak at this time. Hearing none, wait. We need to take, before I ask for adjournment, we have to adjourn to executive session. But before I do, we lost a close member of our community, a former custodial support, Jamie Compies, passed away yesterday. And Nancy, of course, has been a long time staff member, faculty member in our middle school. We'll just have a moment of silence for Jamie and Nancy and the children. Thank you very much. Motion for executive session for matters relating to the persons, there it is, relating to appointment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you coming out. We'll ask you all to leave so we can stay here for our executive session.
Or maybe Joe does.
Maybe I missed it.
I don't think so, but maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, doubtful.